Good afternoon, everyone. So, apat pa lang din ulit kayo naka-join. So, last time I sent you the video, the YouTube video of my presentation of the lesson 3, which is the communication. Lahat pa kayo na view niya siya, na pakinggan nyo at napakinggan niyo siya ng maayos. Hello. Naririnig ba ako? Clear?
Hindi po masyado.
Saglit. Ayan, okay na. Okay na o mahina pa din? Hello. Naririnig niyo ako? Ayan, okay na. Naririnig na ako. Wala kasing sumasagot. Okay, so kung gusto nyong makipag-participate when I was discussing, please unmute your phone na lang, your microphones, no? So, meron ba kayong mga question regarding doon sa lesson 3 natin last time? Any questions and clarification? Lahat pa kayo nakagawa na ng MCI video nyo for the midterm? Wala pang nakapag-submit sa inyo. Okay, so I'll start now with the lesson 4 since naririnig nyo naman ako. So I hope you had your handouts already kasi sinend ko naman yon through Google Classroom last week pa, if I'm not mistaken. So let's start with our lesson 4, which is healthcare process. So what is healthcare process? So it is an organized sequence of problem-solving steps used to identify and to manage the health problems of the client. So you are tasked last time to do a MCI or an MCI video for your midterm that will serve as your midterm project. So from there, since our lesson 3 was communication, so you were able to discuss and communicate and learn how to properly communicate with a client or a patient. So if you interviewed an elderly or a middle-aged person, so you have different approach na ginawa in interviewing a client or a patient. So from your MCI, this is actually in line with your MCI, the healthcare process. So whoever you interviewed, yun din yung inyong magiging client or magiging patient in doing your healthcare process. So, you will submit a midwife healthcare plan after this lesson. So, yun yung inyong task output number 5. So, healthcare process, so ito nga yung systematic organization of problem solving pagdating sa pag-rate ng or pag-identify ng problem sa ating mga patient or sa ating mga client. So what are the advantages of HCP or healthcare process? So it provides an orderly and systematic method of planning and providing care. So it facilitates documentation of care. So it provides an orderly and systematic method of planning and providing care. Kasi when we are giving intervention to our client or to our patient, we are following steps. No? So, hindi tayo pwedeng magsimula sa evaluation without assessing our patient or our client. So, kaya nga it is a systematized approach on problem solving. So, meron tayong sinusundan na sistema para makuha natin or ma-attain natin yung goal natin towards our patient or client. So, it facilitates documentation of care. So, sa healthcare process, katulad nung diniscuss ko last time, yung recording, documentation, and reporting, so dyan nakapaloob yun. So, it facilitates documentation of care. So, it promotes continuity of care as well. And it prevents duplication of interventions already rendered. Kaya lahat, 'di ba? Kung natatandaan nyo ang sinabi ko last time, lahat ng intervention, lahat ng ginawa nyo sa patient nyo, it should be documented. Bakit? Para hindi maging redundant ang intervention natin sa ating patient. Especially when it comes to healthcare setting or hospital setting. Kasi may sinusundan tayong mga shifts. So, whenever you are endorsing your patient or your client to other midwives or other healthcare professionals in hospital setting, so laging dapat mindful tayo, no, na para hindi maduplicate or magdoble-doble yung intervention na ginawa. Baka mamaya, pinainom mo na ng gamot, hindi mo din document. So, papainumin yon ulit nung susunod na or ka-endorse mo na nurse or na midwife kasi you failed to document it. Diba? Laging sa healthcare setting, once it is not documented, it is considered undone. So, hindi kasalanan yun nung second shift na nagbigay siya ulit ng gamot kasi nakalimutan mong i-document yun. So, yung mga simpleng documentation ay napakahalaga yun sa ating kahit anong intervention or anong care ang ginagawa natin sa patient natin. No? Be mindful of that lagi, always. So, it stresses the functions and accountability of midwife in rendering patient care. So, sa healthcare process nga, so since ina-identify natin and ina-manage natin yung health problem ng patient, so we as midwives, yung function and accountability natin sa ating ginagawa at pagre-render ng care sa ating patient ay importante. So it increases care quality through the use of deliberate actions. So sa healthcare process kasi, so since nandyan lahat ng documentation, so naka-record lahat ng intervention and you reported uh, all of the rendered care na ginawa mo sa patient natin. So once it is documented, so doon magsisimula or magkakaroon ng continuous intervention sa patient natin. So we go with the first healthcare process, assessment. So under assessment, we are collecting, organizing, validating, and recording data about the client's health status. So it is the most important step of the healthcare process. Bakit kaya siya ay isang importanteng step para sa healthcare process? Anyone? Any idea? Any idea?
Ito po kasi yung patient info ng pasyente.
Pardon, Miss Sullivan. Medyo nag-choppy yung voice mo.
Ito po yung personal info ng pasyente.
Okay, yeah. Yes, good answer. So, assessment kasi, bakit siya importante o bakit napaka-importante niya? Kasi without any data, without any given data, so without assessment, so how would you be able to determine kung ano ang kailangan ng pasyente mo? So through assessment dyan mo nakukolek o nakukuha yung mga data na kailangan mo para mag-proceed ka sa iyong intervention and para ka makapag-proceed sa intervention sa iyong pasyente. So there is two types of assessment. So objective and subjective data. So objective data, it is also known as overt. Data that can be detected by an observer, such as, for example, BP, pulse rate, height, weight. So those were the objective data or yung mga data na pwede nating ma-measure or measurable data at pwede nating makuha. So, yung mga pagkuha mo ng BP, so, numeric siya, no? Meron siyang, pag kumuha ka ng BP, so, for example, 120/80. So, you have that data that is called overt data or objective data. Second is subjective data or also known as covert data. Data that can be perceived only by affected person of the patient himself. So, data that cannot be measured. So, tandaan nyo, ang objective is measurable, whereas ang ating subjective data is hindi siya na-measure or it cannot be observed. Bakit kaya? Bakit kaya? Ang pain ba na may measure? Ang pain ba ng patient? So basically, yes, tama ka, Miss Sullivan. So basically, ang pain ng patient mo, hindi mo yan masasabi na ay may nararamdaman yan siyang masakit. By merely looking at him or her, hindi ganon kadaling i-measure na ang pain ng pasyente mo. Pero somehow nadidistinguish mo kasi minsan may mga objective data kang nakikita like facial grimaces, yung physical physical attributes niya or physical gestures niya, kung paano, kung halimbawa masakit ang tiyan niya, nakahawak siya sa tiyan niya. So, you can see it as objective data or overt data kasi physically observable siya. 'Di ba? Kung halimbawa masakit ang pasyente ng client mo and yung facial grimace niya, nakita mo na masakit yung at saka nakahawak siya sa tiyan niya. So, that's objective data. But, kung yung pain na yon na nararamdaman niya, hindi mo yun mame-measure kasi siya lang yung nakakaramdam nun. But we do have actually our measuring scale, measuring of pain scale. No, meron tayo niyang ginagamit sa ating healthcare process. So, eventually, later on, malalaman niyo kung paano mag-measure ng pain. But, basically, hindi natin kaya siyang i-measure, no? Kung yung patient na nakakaramdam nun ng pain, so siya yung, not unless sabihin niya sa'yo talaga, so hindi mo siya mami-measure kung gaano kasakit yung pain na nararamdaman niya. Yung feelings of worry, yung itchiness, hindi din natin kaya yung i-measure. So that's those data cannot be measured. So that is subjective data. So sources of data, saan ba nanggagaling ang data natin when we start our assessment? So we have the primary source and secondary source of data. So ang primary source, the information provided by the client himself. So ang primary source natin na data na tinatawag ay yung mismong nanggagaling sa patient, the client or the patient himself alone. So pag ito ay nanggagaling outside, for example, the information is provided by the family members or support persons, guardian, other healthcare professionals, through the records of the patient and reports, laboratory and diagnostic analysis, and other relevant literature. So that is called the secondary data. Malinaw po yon, yung secondary and primary data. Kapag secondary, kanino nanggagaling ang data?
Sa family.
Yes, sa family or outside. So, sa outside the environment or sa environment ng patient. So, kapag primary source, sa kanya mismo nang gagaling ang data. So, methods of data collection. So, paano ba tayo kung nagko-collect ng data when it comes to healthcare process? So, first we have the review of clinical record. So, ano ang review of clinical record? So, clinical records of the patient include past medical history, results of diagnostic tests and consultation records previously collected and recorded by different health professionals who were involved in the care of the client in the past and in the present. So, ang clinical record, kaya nga, 'di ba, kung natatandaan ninyo, kailangan kapag may pasyente tayo, nire-record natin, nire-report natin ang data, dine-document natin ang data, kasi that clinical record will serve as your guide kung paano mo ma-identify ang patient mo and the underlying cause of problem or kung may illness siyang nararamdaman. So, ang mga clinical records ay ang mga medical history, past medical history, diagnostic report, at kung etc., etc. So, these are actually nandoon sa list na binigay ko sa inyo last time sa communication natin. Diba may mga list doon ng mga data. Yung sa patient's chart or patient record, yung merong mga admission sheet, yung mga merong mga TPR sheet. So, yun ang mga tinatawag na clinical records. So, second is interview. So, interview it is a planned conversation or a communication with a purpose. So, katulad ng ginawa nyong midwife-client interaction. So, you interviewed your client, no? So, that is what we called interview. So, what are the purpose of interview? So, first, ano bang in-establish nyo nung una bago kayo mag-proceed sa inyong interview? Anong ginawa nyo? Anong in-establish nyo with the patient para makuha nyo yung trust? Anyone? Hindi ba kayo nag-establish nito last time during your MCI? So, purpose of interview, ang first ay lagi nyong wag nyong kakalimutan, develop rapport or establish rapport with the client. How are you going to get or collect data, good, reasonable, true, and honest data if hindi ka nakapag-establish ng rapport sa patient mo? Hindi ka nakapag-establish, hindi mo nakuha ang trust ng patient mo. Diba? Yan ang key factor when you are interviewing a client and in giving intervention and rendering care. Lagi nating ini-establish ang rapport with your client or lagi nating kailangang kunin ang kanilang trust para magkaroon ng maayos na communication at ma-meet nyo yung goal nyo to give the right and proper intervention, diba? So, second is gather data about the client's health history and identify problems. So, ang purpose nyo, bakit kayo nag-i-interview? Siyempre, para makakuha ng mga pertinent data, ng mga importanteng mga data, especially yung health history ng patient nyo. Bakit niya na-acquire ang disease or ang illness? And to identify na rin ang problem niya kung meron siyang existing problems. Then have an opportunity to provide information to the client pertaining to her healthcare. So when you do interview para hindi lang para makadevelop ka ng rapport, makakuha ka ng mga pertinent data at maka-identify ka ng problem. You also wanted to provide information. Like, paano ka makakapag-provide ng information sa patient mo? So, for example is yung health teaching na ginagawa, no? So, later on, you will be taught how to do it para makapagbigay tayo ng maganda at maayos at reliable na information na magagamit ng mga patient natin or ng mga client natin. Then, the fourth one will be provide client support. So, sa interview kasi, kaya natin to ginagawa. So, hindi lang para nga ma-assess ang pasyente natin with their existing problems para makapag-provide din na information. But, basically, kaya tayo nag-i-interview para alam natin kung paano tayo mag-i-intervene sa patient natin, paano tayo makakapag-provide ng support, paano tayo makakatulong na maging independent siya or maging independent siya to handle her problems or illnesses or medical problems. So there are two kinds of interview, the directive interview and the rapport building interview. So in directive interview, it involves asking close-ended questions to elicit specific information. So ano ba ang mga close-ended questions? So yun yung mga tanong na hindi vague or hindi masyadong malawak, no? Yung specific lang ang tanong, direct to the point, kumbaga. So the question usually begins with when, what, who, where, do, and is. So the interview is controlled by the interviewer. So sa directive interview, sino ang naka-center dito? Is it patient or client-centered or is it interviewee-centered? Anyone? So since it is directive interview, so yung nagko-question or yung nag-i-interview, siya yung nagko-control ng flow. So since siya yung nagko-control ng flow, siya yung nagda-direct kung paano or how will the interviewee will respond. So siya ang center ng it is interviewee-centered, no? Interviewer-centered, rather. So, example, when was your last menstrual period? So, kailan ang iyong last na regla? So, that is answerable by a specific answer. So, a concrete answer, no? So, when? Kailan? Kailan? Hindi naman niya pwedeng sabihin, ang tawag dito? So, ang sagot niya is yung specific date, syempre. Kasi it's LMP, or last menstrual period. So, ang makukuha mong answer is concrete answer. Whereas sa second one, which is rapport building interview, it is the type of interview that is often used for counseling, problem solving, and performance appraisal. So the patient controls the pace, purpose, and subject matter of interview. The interviewer encourages communication by asking open-ended questions. So these are questions that encourage the patient to elaborate, explore, and clarify their feelings and thought. So for example, ano yung tinanong nyo sa client nyo last time? Diba tinanong nyo kung kamusta po kayo ngayon or how are you today? Naalala nyo ba yon? Tinanong nyo ba yun sa client nyo? O walang nagtanong sa client ng ganon? So, isa yun sa mga tinatawag na open-ended question. So, you wanted to get more information to your patient or to your client, kaya you ask question na pwede niyang i-expound pa kung ano yung nararamdaman niya. So, when you ask, how are you feeling today? So, you wanted to expound or elaborate yung kung ano ang nararamdaman niya para mas ma-identify mo yung problem niya. So, that is patient-centered or client-centered interview. Then, we go with the type of questions used in interview. So, as I mentioned a while ago, so the close-ended and the open-ended question. So, close-ended, so these are the questions that can be answered by yes or no, provide exact responses or factual answers. So, it is useful in clients who are agitated, in pain, have difficulty communicating and concentrating or in a lot of stress. So, katulad ng sinabi ko nga, so it provides exact responses. So, kung ano lang yung hinihingi mo, yun lang ang isasagot sa'yo ng client mo or ng patient mo. So, basically, ginagamit natin itong mga questions na to, for those person who are in pain or if they are agitated, they have difficulty concentrating or in a lot of stress. So baka naman kasi ang pasyente mo or ang client mo ay in pain na, tinanong mo pa kung how are you today? Tell me how you feel. How are you feeling today? So gusto mo pang ipa-elaborate sa kanya yung pain niya, in pain na nga siya, no? For example, ang mother is in labor. So hindi mo na pwedeng tanungin niya ng kamusta po kayo ngayon? How are you feeling today? Tell me more about how you feel. Hindi na pwedeng gano'n, no? Kaya meron tayong sinusundan kung ano ang dapat at tamang questions na ibibitaw sa ating mga patients or itatanong sa ating mga patient. So kapag hindi na nga kayang in distress na ang pasyente mo, tanungin mo pa ba ng masyadong vague na tanong? Siyempre, 'di ba? So lagi nating let's all be mindful kung ano lagi ang dapat na intervention na sa ating mga patient, no? Then, second one is open-ended questions. So, the question that allow and encourage client to express their feelings. So to elaborate and to explore more. So, kung halimbawa may gusto ka pang malaman na mas malalim pang mga information sa patient mo, sa client mo, so kailangan mong i-expound pa ang mga information para mas ma-identify mo ang problem. So you will use open-ended questions. Then we go with the stages of interview. So opening, orientation, body, and closing. So katulad ng ginawa nyo, 'di ba? Paano kayo nag-open ng conversation with your patient? So, baka yung iba, bigla na lang nagtanong, no? So, that's a no-no. Dapat, lagi nating establish muna ang rapport, no? Baka maya pagdating mo sa bahay ng patient o kaya pagdating mo sa bedside ng patient, bigla mo na lang siyang ginulat na nagtanong ka, no? Hindi dapat ganun, no? Kaya lagi dapat i-establish mo na ang rapport with your patient. Kasi kapag ang patient, once na lumapit ka at na-intimidate sa'yo ang pasyente or awkward agad yung pakiramdam sa'yo ng pasyente, pumunta ka doon na para kang boss lang na nagtanong sa kanya, no? So, the patient will feel awkward, syempre. So, paano yun mag-open up sa'yo? Paano mo malalaman yung tamang problem? Paano mo ma-identify yung tamang problem kung hindi siya mag-open up sa'yo or hindi siya magsasalita? Kasi nga, at the very beginning, pagbukas ng door, pag-open ng pintuan, bigla ka na lang nagtanong, hindi ka man lang nagpakilala sa pasyente mo or sa client mo. 'Di ba? So, let's start with respect and establishing rapport. Siyempre, kung papaano ka gusto mong ituring ka ng if ever you are the client. So, ganun din yung ating gawin sa ating client. Then, opening, so process of creating goodwill and trust. So, composed of greeting and introduction. So, magandang umaga po. Ako po si ganito. Ako po si Miss Jessica Soliven. Isa po ako midwifery student sa Occidental Mindoro State College. So, you start with introducing yourself, no? Para alam ng pasyente kung sino ka. Makakala niya kung sino ka lang pumasok doon sa kwarto at bigla ka na lang nag-intervene doon, no? So, kahit yung mga old nurses na, I mean, those nurses who are in their profession or practicing their profession for years and years already. So, they are still establishing their rapport with their patient, introducing themselves to the patient para maayos yung maging outcome or output ng ating intervention. Then, orientation. So, the interview explains the purpose and nature of the interview. So, bakit mo siya i-interviewin? Kailangan mong i-disclose yun sa kanya na kailangan po kitang interviewin kasi po para sa ganito. So, para alam niya, kasi baka mamaya kung ano lang pala yung interview na ginawa mo, hindi niya alam. So, hindi mo rin mahukot up yung attention niya ng maayos. Then, body. So, this is the question and answer portion where the interviewer obtains the needed information from the interviewee. So, sa ibang mga nag-interview or nag-send ng kanilang mga MCI or videos, yung iba, sa pagdating na sa question and answer portion, yung iba nakakalimutan ng maging polite. Especially kapag ang kanilang mga ini-interview is mga family member nila. Kahit na mga family member nyo sila, dapat andun pa rin yung ano nyo, no? Yung composure nyo na dapat maayos, na dapat i-treat nyo sila as different people. I mean, as different, hindi mo kamag-anak, i-treat mo sila as your client. Kung paano ka dapat makitungo sa tao, paano ka makitungo sa iba. Kasi yung iba, nakakalimutan nila na ang kausap nila ay dapat ang pinapakitunguhan nila is like the way they should do to their client. Yung iba nakakalimot. And then, yung iba din, nawawala sila doon sa hindi sila spontaneous. So, hindi consistent yung pagtatanong nila. Nagja-jumble-jumble yung kanilang mga questions. Hindi synchronize, hindi maayos yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng questions nila. So, dapat hindi masyadong magulo kapag nagtatanong tayo para hindi rin magulo yung sagot sa atin, no, ng ating mga client. So, when you do question and answer, so dyan mo kasi malalaman, yan yung pinaka-center ng conversation nyo. So, dyan mo ma-identify yung mga health problems, yung mga other identifiable needs nila. Kaya dapat yung sa question and answer portion, dapat maging maayos yung flow niya. Then, syempre, wag nating kakalimutan ang fourth one ng stages of interview, which is the closing, no? Kung sa program nga may closing remarks, 'di ba? So dapat pagdating sa interview, especially if you are going in the community setting na, so may opening ka, may orientation ka, may body ka. So don't forget the closing, no? The interviewer terminates the interview when the needed information is obtained. So, syempre magpaalam ka din, no? Baka naman bigla mo na lang iniwan si client mo pagkatapos mo makuha ang lahat ng impormasyon na kailangan mo. So, be always courteous, no? And polite sa ating mga clientele. And then, so those were the 4 important stages of interview. So you have already undergone the interview process, yung pinagawa namin sa inyong video. submission nyo na ba nun sa inyong CP100? Or nakapag-submit na kayo or isasubmit nyo pa lang? Na-submit nyo na? Lahat kayo nakapag-submit na? So, ayun. So, yung mga interview na yon, since first time nyo pa lang, so, hindi naman namin ina-expect na maging perfect agad, no? So, everything naman, every first time naman, diba? Laging, there is always a room for improvement. So, upon discussing it today, dapat mindful na kayo doon sa mga hindi nyo dapat ginawa or nagkamali kayong gawin during the interview. Para when we are in the community setting na, so hopefully kapag natapos ng crisis natin na to, ang pandemya na to, so when you will go to the community to interview your respective client, when you are doing the interview, so alam nyo na or mindful na kayo ng mga dapat at hindi dapat gawin. Then we go with the health history. So this is the third method of data collection. So it is the primary source of information about the patient or the client. It can be obtained from the patient himself, relatives, or existing health records. So, di ba pagdating ng pasyente sa any healthcare facility, nagkakaroon ng interview. Kasi para ma-assess ang pasyente. Kasi kaya mo kailangan i-assess ang pasyente. Pag hindi mo siya in-assess, how are you going to intervene? How are you going to give care to the patient kung hindi mo alam kung paano at paano mo siya bibigyan ng care kasi hindi mo siya in-assess? May lagnat pala siya. May lagnat siya. Hindi mo alam na may lagnat siya. So, hindi mo alam kung anong gagawin mo, diba? So, as simple as that. Kaya dapat, when we are assessing patient, we should be thorough dapat ang assessment sa patient, no? Para wala tayong ma-miss out or ma-mislook na any information, any valuable, any important information ng patient natin. That's why we are getting their health history. Kasi baka may allergy sa gamot ang pasyente mo, baka allergy siya sa antibiotics, mag-i-inject ka ng antibiotics. So, might as well ask, diba? So, we are asking, kaya meron tayong form, meron tayong admission form, so andyan nakasulat lahat ng mga details ng patient natin. So, we should be getting the health history para alam natin kung may mga existing na mga health problems ang patient natin. So, the content of health history are demographic data. Ano ba ang demographic data? So, this is basically your personal information from your name to your religion and race. Then, you have the chief complaint. Ano ang chief complaint? Chief complaint, anyone? May nakapag-advanced reading na ba? Ano ang chief complaint? Yes, Miss Sullivan. Yes?
Yung reason po ng sakit.
Mm-hmm.
Yung reason ng compliant ko, po yung dahilan ng sakit mo.
Yes, you're correct. How about Miss Pablo? Yes, you want to say something?
Dahilan bakit pumunta at nagpapa-check up.
Yes. So, basically, ang chief complaint, ito yung rason kung bakit nagko-consult or kumukonsulta ang pasyente sa healthcare facility. So, kung halimbawa, masakit ang ulo niya, so that is ACC. CC is the abbreviation of chief complaint. So, makikita niyo yan sa chart. sa admission record ng patient. So, CC or chief complaint. Kung ang pasyente mo ay naninikip ang dibdib, so that is the chief complaint of the patient, no? So, it is usually recorded in patient words, own words. So, kung anong sinabi niya. Kasi pagdating ng patient, tanongin mo, ano po ang nangyari, ano po ang dahilan, bakit po kayo napunta dito or pumunta dito para kumonsulta. So, sasabihin niya, masakit ang ngipin ko, nahirapan akong huminga, masakit ang ulo ko. So, that is the chief complaint. So, isusulat mo yon as is, kung paano yung pagkakasabi ng pasyente. Kung masakit ang ulo niya, di sulat mo doon na headache ang chief complaint ng patient mo. Kaya siya dumating doon sa healthcare facility. Then, number 3 is history of present illness. So, the history of present health concern or illness, it should contain the 8 areas of investigation. So, the 8 areas are sequence and chronology. Yes, Miss Pablo. Pakibasa nga siya lahat.
Sequence and chronology, frequency, location and radiation, character of complaint, intensity or severity, setting, associated manifestation, aggravating or alleviating factors.
So, thank you. So, those were the 8 areas of investigation. Yan yung dapat na itanong or malaman natin regarding sa present illness kung meron mang history ang patient natin. So, we have to start with the first one, sequence and chronology. So, sequence and chronology. So, paano nagsimula ang sakit niya? Kailan, paano nagsimula ang sakit niya? Sunod is frequency, gaano kadalas. Kung masakit ang ulo niya, gaano kadalas sumasakit ang ulo niya? Twice a day, 3 times a day, every hour. So, yun yung frequency. Location and radiation. Kung masakit ang ulo niya, saan? Sa temporal ba? You already tackle it to your in your anatomy ba? Yung temporal, occipital, parietal. Wala pa. Sa head, sa areas. Wala pa. So, ayun. So, location and radiation kung saan? Kung sa noo ba banda, sa likod, sa may batok, sa gilid ng ulo. So, kung saan ang location. At radiation. Radiation kung saan? Kung simula sa noo mo hanggang sa likod mo or dito lang sa tabi mo. Kasi may mga iba't ibang klase ng headache, no? Merong mga tinatawag na may migraine, may tension, headache. So, iba-ibang cause ng pain, iba-ibang location, iba-ibang radiation. So, iba-iba ang magiging diagnosis yan ng doktor. No, hindi pare-pareho yan. Hindi porket sinabing masakit ang ulo, yun na lang yun, migraine na lang yun. So, hindi ganun, no? Kaya, kailangan nating alamin lahat ito. So, yun yung third one, location and radiation. Then, character of pain. Paano pa ang pain? Is it like stabbing wound? Para ka bang sinasaksak? Parang kinakrampol yung ulo mo? Para bang sinusundot? Para bang dinadaganan? May nakadagan? So, character of pain. Then, intensity or severity. Gaano kasakit? Pwede mong tanungin yung patient ng scale of 10. Sa scale of 10, gaano kasakit? From 1 to 10. Kung ang sinabi ng pasyente ay 9. So, kung sa kanya ay 9, so ibig sabihin, sobrang sakit sa kanya yung pain na nararamdaman niya. Ganon kasakit yun. Ganon yung severity ng pain niya. Then, setting. setting. So, sa setting, so, minsan kasi, di ba, may mga pain na sumasakit siya kapag nasa kulob ka na lugar, congested na lugar, or kapag mainit, kapag nandoon ka sa madilim na lugar, so ganon. So, yun yung mga example ng setting kung saan natitrigger yung pain mo. Kung kapag may naaamoy kang something na hindi na hindi maganda sa pang-amoy mo, o masangsang sa pang-amoy, yun, natitrigger na ang pain mo sa ganon. So, yun yung example ng number 6. Yes, number 6. Then, associated manifestation, ano ba ang nararamdaman mo before mo ma-experience ang pain? Kung migraine headache kasi, merong aura yung na tinatawag. So, before sumakit ang ulo mo, parang medyo may nakikita kang parang mga aura ang tawag nila doon. Yung parang may mga something na kakaiba kang na-view sa mata mo, like parang medyo may pa-shadow na something ganon. So may aura yan kaya malalaman mo kung yung headache lang siya. Kung simpleng headache lang siya or migraine headache siya. So ano ang mga na-experience mo, may mga naramdaman mo bago sumakit ang ulo mo. So that's the associated manifestation. Then aggravating or alleviating factors. Ano ang nakakapag-trigger ng symptoms mo, ng headache mo? Ayaw mo ba ng noise? Ayaw mo ba ng maingay na paligid? So nakakadagdag ba yan ng pain mo? Or gusto mo ba ng tahimik na paligid para hindi sumakit ang ulo mo, para hindi ma-trigger ang sakit ng ulo mo? So, yun yung number 8. So, these are the important 8 areas of investigation when you are collecting data of history of present illness. Then, we go with the number 4, which is past health history. So, past, para malaman mo if ang illness ng isang patient or ang identified problems mo, identified health problems ng patient mo ay dahil ba nung bata pa siya or since childhood meron siya nun, or nito lang siya nagkaroon, or maybe it is hereditary. So, ang past health history is a detailed summary of person's past health. So, for example, number 1 is childhood illness. Childhood illness, nagkaroon ka na ba ng dito? Nagkaroon ka na ba ng chickenpox before, ng measles? So, isa yan sa mga most common na tinatanong, no? And then, yung sakit mo ba, ngayon lang yan nag-manifest? Or, nadala mo ba siya simula ng pagkabata hanggang ngayon? Then, C is psychiatric illness. So, meron ba siyang mga nakaraang or past history na nagkaroon siya ng depression, anxiety, nagkaroon siya ng problema sa pag-iisip, difficulty in concentrating, or agitated ba siya? Number 4 is injuries, burn, fracture, and head injuries. Na-disgrasya ba siya before? Kaya ba sumasakit yung ulo niya kasi baka may head injury siya dati nung na-disgrasya sa motor, bumagok ang ulo niya, hindi niya pala alam, baka yun ang nagiging cause ng headache niya. Then, hospitalization. Nagkaroon na ba siya ng history or hospitalized na ba siya dati? Nadala na ba siya sa ospital? Nagkaroon na ba siya ng ibang karamdaman before? Number 6, surgical and diagnostic procedure. Naoperahan na ba siya? Nagkaroon ba siya minor or major incision or surgery before? Current medication, may mga gamot ba siyang iniinom? Meron ba siyang mga maintenance na medication? Then, use of alcohol and drugs. So, ito, bakit kaya ito importante? Yung last one, yung use of alcohol and drugs, sa tingin nyo, bakit? Bakit natin itatanong sa patient yun? Or bakit natin tinatanong? Anyone? Wild guess. So, bakit natin tinatanong yun? So, for example, nasa emergency tayo, no? Sa emergency, may CVA or may may VA or vehicular accident. May nagbangga ang motor, nagbangga ang sasakyan. So, isa siya sa mga nasugatan. Bakit natin itatanong yung use of alcohol and drugs? Bakit kaya? So, kasi, ang alcohol and drugs, it affects the body system no, ng tao. So, when you use alcohol and drugs, nagkakaroon niya ng epekto sa buong sistema ng tao. So, kapag nakainom ka, tapos kailangan mong mag-undergo ng anesthesia or kailangan kang saksakan ng anesthesia, meron kasi yung epekto, no? May hindi magandang epekto yun. Kasi, same as syempre, when you are under drug, no? Na dinala ka sa emergency room tapos drug ka. So, may mga epekto yun. And, even the long-term use of alcohol and drugs, may epekto yon sa buong sistema ng tao. Kaya tinatanong natin at mahalaga yon kahit na wala tayo sa hospital setting, kahit nasa community setting lang tayo. Para mas ma-assess mo yung patient mo. For example, ang patient mo ay nagtitremble, nanginginig, nagtitremble ang patient mo. Nanginginig. Bakit kaya siya nanginginig? Hindi mo alam. Tapos, eventually, nung nag-open up siya sa'yo, ano pala siya? Dati pala siyang drug addict. So, tapos, nagkaroon din siya ng alcohol abuse. So, kasi minsan yung mga ganong klase ng mga nag-jitters, yung mga patient natin or mga client natin, mga after effect yun or mga effect yun ng kanilang mga use of drugs or drug abuse and alcohol abuse earlier in their life. So, kaya tinatanong natin, yun ang importante yun. Then, number 5 is family history. Family history, so identify diseases that may be genetic, communicable, or possibly environmental in origin. So, kailangan din nating tanungin ang family history kasi si mother ay diabetic. Bakit siya naging diabetic? Yun pala ay namana niya sa kanyang mga ninuno or sa kanyang parents. Pwedeng sa parents niya or sa ibang relative. So, pwede kasing may mga sakit kasing namamana, no? Namamana natin sa ating mga elderly or sa ating mga parents, sa ating mga relatives. So, may mga sakit na tinatawag nilang nananalitay sa dugo or even it can be passed through generations. Then, we go with family history. So, there is first order relative and second order relative. So, ang first order natin, so if yung sakit mo or yung iyong history of acquiring illness ay from your parents, your siblings, from sa magulang mo, sa kapatid mo, sa asawa mo, and sa children mo. So, yun ang tinatawag na first order relative. So, ang transmission or ang na-acquire mo siya through your first order relative sa magulang mo or sa immediate family mo. Immediate family member. Then, ang second is yung second order relatives, which is yung grandparents mo or yung cousins mo, aunts and uncles mo. So, your second order relatives. Doon ang galing yung pagkakasakit mo or yung sakit mo. Then, review of systems. So, an overview of general health as well as symptoms related to each body system. So, kapag sumakit ang ulo mo, may iba pa bang sumasakit? So, baka kasi yung pagsakit ng ulo mo is a sign lang or a symptom lang ng iba pang mas malalang sakit. No? Kaya, kailangan nating i-trace yung simpleng pain na yon para alam natin at ma-identify natin ng maayos kung ano ba talaga yung bakit siya sumasakit ang ulo. Then, we go with patient profile. So, a complete profile of the patient. So, kailangan natin yun no, para maging holistic yung approach natin sa pasyente natin. And then, review of literature. So, additional data about the client's condition obtained from reviewing journals, textbooks, and recent research and findings. So, as we go on our interview to our patients, so mas maganda din na meron tayong iba pang mga information, iba pang mga knowledge, kaalaman na tungkol doon sa mga identified problems ng patient natin para we are able to assess accordingly and appropriately. Then, physical examination. So, it is the systematic cephalocaudal. Ano ang cephalocaudal? Anyone who knows cephalocaudal? Ano ito sa layman's term? Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. From your head to your toes. Cephalo is head. Caudal is foot. So, it's cephalocaudal. From its head to toe assessment data. So, head to toe assessment data collection method that uses observational skills to detect the health problems. So, physical examination, basically, ito ang ginagawa ng doktor. Yung simpleng pag-auscultate mo, yung, di ba, alam niyo ba yung stethoscope, yung nilalagay ng doctor sa tenga niya? Tapos 'di ba, kung natatandaan niyo, kung meron na sa inyong mga na-check up or nagpa-physical exam, 'di ba ilalagay niya 'yun sa anywhere in your chest. Tapos sabihin niya hinga ng malalim. So that is one kind of physical examination. So, chine-check ng doktor kung tama ang paghinga mo, maayos ang paghinga mo, wala kang asthma. So, isa yan sa mga physical examination na ginagawa. So, cephalocaudal, head to toe assessment, simula sa ulo hanggang paa. So, after assessing the client, the midwife will be able to determine and identify health problems that can be alleviated with interventions. So, upon assessing, so nagka-come up ka na sa mga problems na na-identify mo sa mga patient mo, tsaka nalalaman mo na kung saan ba doon o alin ba doon yung pwedeng ma-alleviate or pwedeng magawa ng paraan at meron doon yung long-term na hindi na pwedeng or hindi na magagawa ng paraan. So, for maintenance na lang. So we go with the actual problem needs and potential problem needs. So ano ba ang actual problem needs? So these are the problems or needs which manifest by signs and symptoms. So yung nakikita mo with your bare eyes na signs and symptoms. Then potential problem needs. So problems or needs which the patient has a high risk for developing potential. Maaaring yung mataas ang risk na maaaring maka-acquire ka ng disease or ng health problem. Then we go now with the second one. So after assessment, you go with your planning. Pagkatas mo nang ma-interview, ma-collect ang data, lahat-lahat na data na kailangan mo, then we go with planning. So planning, it is a series of steps in which the midwife and the patient set priorities and goals, select appropriate interventions to resolve or minimize the identified problems of the client. So magpaplano na tayo. Ano ba ang goal natin? Ano ang gusto nating ma-achieve? Ano ang priority natin? Ano ang objective natin para sa ating patient? So we have goals, two types of goals, the short-term and the long-term goals. So kung kayo ay familiar na sa short-term and long-term goals, short-term, so have outcomes achievable in few days or 1 week. So from the word itself, short-term, saglit lang, no? Maximum is 1 week. So ang goal mo ba is aabutin ng 1 araw, 2 araw, o hanggang 1 linggo? That will fall under short-term goals. But if your goals will take weeks or months to accomplish, so that will fall under your long-term goal. So guidelines in planning, pag nagpa-plan tayo, ano ba dapat ang kailangan nating sundin? So our planning should be guided with the 5 letters. So SMART, or yung tinatawag na SMART. Ano kaya ang SMART? So SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bounded. So when you are planning care to your patient, it should be specific. Specific, kung headache lang ang gusto mong i-alleviate at yun ang goal mo na mawala or maibsan yung pain or yung headache ng pasyente mo, be specific. So kung headache lang, no? Huwag mong haluan ng iba pa kasi magiging masyadong magulo ang healthcare plan mo kapag pinagsama-sama mo ang lahat. So specific ka lang. Then measurable. So measurable. Kaya mo bang i-measure kung paano, hanggang saan, kaya mong i-measure yung intervention na gagawin mo kung marireach mo yung goal mo o hindi mo kaya. So if it's not, then you find something else. I mean, you retract your goal, redirect your goal para ma-achieve mo yung goal mo. Then attainable. Possible ba na ma-reach mo yung goal mo sa pinlano mo? Kung pinlano mo ba ng 1 week, possible ba na ma-reach mo siya within 1 week? So attainable ba siya? So if it's attainable, then go with your planning. So nasa right direction ka. Is it realistic? Realistic. Dapat ang pagpaplano mo ay kahit na virtual learning tayo, hindi dapat virtual ang iyong planning. Dapat realistic, no? Realistic. Sa totoo lang. kung ano yung dapat na intervention sa patient. And time-bounded. Hindi pwedeng ang time limit mo ay forever para sa intervention mo sa patient mo. It should be time-bounded. Kung isang linggo lang, isang linggo lang. Isang linggo lang, yung goal mo ba na yun, ma-attain mo siya o ma-complete mo siya, mamimit mo siya, mamimit mo siya within 1 week, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it should be time-bounded. Hindi pwedeng bahala na. Hindi pwedeng years. No? So it should be time-bounded. Hindi pwedeng sobrang hindi pwedeng wala tayong patutunguhan when we are planning, no? So be mindful of that abbreviation, no? SMART. So this is your guidelines when you are planning your care to your patient. It should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bounded, or may time frame tayo. Then priority setting. So the process of establishing which problem requires attention first, which second, and so on. So guidelines in setting priorities. So if it's life-threatening, it is the first priority. For example, may naputulan ng paa na disgrasya. Merong nagli-labor, masakit ang tiyan. Merong ina-asthma. Sino ang unahin natin doon when it comes to priority setting? Sino ang ipaprioritize natin ng care sa tatlo na yon? Yung naputulan ng paa dahil na-disgrasya, yung sumasakit ang tiyan kasi nagli-labor, or yung ina-asthma? Anyone? How about Miss Pascual? Miss Pascual? Katulog na yata si Miss Pascual. How about Miss Eduardo?
Hello po, ma'am.
Yes. Kala ko nakatulog ka na eh. So, anong answer mo dun sa question ko? Which one will you prioritize first? Yung nagli-labor na masakit ang tiyan na mother, pregnant mother, yung naputulan ng paa, or yung asthmatic patient?
Yung ina-asthma, ma'am?
Yes, correct. So, ina-asthma kasi, bakit? So, ang first priority natin when it comes to giving or rendering care is yung first priority is yung any threat to the vital functions of breathing, heartbeat, and blood pressure. So, vital signs are vital signs. So, ang vital signs natin ay kasama ang RR or ang respiratory rate natin, 'di ba? So yang naputulan ng paa, makakapaghintay yan, hindi naman yan siya agad hemorrhagic siya kasi matagal pa yan siya bago maubusan ng dugo, kung mauubusan siya ng dugo kasi naputulan siya ng paa. Yung nagli-labor, in pain lang yan, pero hindi yan niya ikakamatay yung pain niya na yun kasi it is a process. It is a natural process of childbirth. But yung asthmatic patient, obstructed ang airway niya. So kapag na-block ang airway ng patient mo, syukbi na agad ang patient mo. Okay? So yun ang priority natin, no? Kunyari may dumating sa emergency room, tatlo sila sabay-sabay yung case na yon. So, unahin mo ang asthmatic patient kasi may breathing difficulty siya. Anytime na in split second na mawala ang breathing niya, na ma-block ang airway niya, masusukbi ang pasyente mo. Ang putol ang paa, matagal pa yan bago maubos ang dugo sa katawan niya at masukbi siya, no? Pero ang in pain lang yan, hindi niya rin ikakamatay yung pain, no? during labor. Hindi mo naman ikakamatay yun kasi it's a natural process of giving birth or childbirth. Kaya lang, syempre, pain yun, pero hindi siya priority, no? So, lagi yun ang ating isipin. So, any vital function, pag vital signs natin, ang major vital signs natin, ang pulse natin, ang respiration natin, ang heartbeat natin, ang pulse rate natin ang nawala, at yun ang critical. So, you go first. You prioritize first yun, no? Yun ang uunahin natin. Kahit na nahuli dumating si asthmatic patient, kahit nagtutungayaw na yung asawa nung naputulan ng paa at yung asawa nung nagsisigaw na buntis doon, dahil sa pain, uunahin natin yung asthmatic patient. So, that's how you set your priorities, no, pagdating sa healthcare. Kaya siguro, in reality, no, especially when you started working na sa healthcare facility, especially in the hospital, no, nangyayari yan talaga. Meron pang nagwawalang mga relatives dyan kasi nauna daw sila sa pila. Bakit inuna yung asthmatic patient kesa sa kanya, no, na naputulan naman daw siya ng paa. So, when it comes to healthcare setting, meron tayong prioritization of needs ng patient natin, 'di ba? We are already done with our Maslow's hierarchy of needs, 'di ba? Balik tayo doon every time magagamit natin 'yon. Saan ang breathing natin? Anong needs 'yon saan nakarank ang ating breathing or ang ating respiration, ang ating vital signs? Is it physiologic needs or security needs? Anyone? Nakalimutan na yata. Yes, Miss Pascual. Yes, it's a physiologic need kasi basic needs yan ng tao, no? Ang air is vital, no? Very important yan sa atin. So, that's the basic needs of patient. So, if andoon magfo-fall lang naman siya doon sa hierarchy of needs na security lang ang kailangan niya. Ano pa rin ang matimbang? Security or yung physiologic needs ng pasyente mo? Yes, it will always be physiologic needs, no? Kasi andyan yung basic needs ng ng client natin. So, the medium priority will be health-threatening problems that may result in delayed developments. So, yun yung medium priority. And low priority, problems that arise from normal development needs. So, yung hindi masyadong ganun kalala or ganun paano natin i-rate? Hindi ganun, hindi siya sobrang lala, no? Kasi basically malala naman yan. So may malala, medyo malala, may sobrang lala. So yung sobrang lala at yun yung nakakamatay agad, yun yung first priority. Yung medyo pwede pang i-delay, first priority. Pero yung able pa naman at pwede naglalakad, ambulative pa yung patient mo, ambulatory pa yung patient mo, malakad pa yung pasyente mo, that is your lowest priority. Then, safety issues. So, second guidelines in setting priorities, safety issues, no? And patient-identified issues and midwife-identified priorities. So, that's how you set up your priorities in giving or rendering care. So, the plan of care should be laging patient-centered, no? Hindi porket ito ang gusto mong i-render na care sa kanya, yun ang gagawin mo, no. Naku, nag-ingay na naman siya. So, as much as possible, it should be client-centered or patient-centered. So, for example, the patient will demonstrate how to perform tabba to her newborn after observing the demonstration of midwife. So, client-centered. Client-centered pa rin siya. siya pa rin yung gagawa nun. Siya pa rin ang gagawa nung tub bath, pero ide-demo mo lang sa kanya. No? Kasi ine-exercise natin or pina-practice natin ang independent, ang pagiging independent, self-sufficient ng ating mga patients. And then we go now with the intervention. So after you have assessed your patient and you have planned the care to be given to the patient, then we go with the intervention. So you are putting your plan into action. So this is the time na nagawa na tayo ng dapat nating gawin sa patient natin. So kinds of intervention, direct and indirect intervention. So direct intervention, actions performed through interaction with client. So example, performing sponge bath on a client with fever to lower down body temperature. So direct information. Ikaw mismo, midwife, ang nagpa-perform ng specific intervention sa patient. Indirect, action performed away from the client on behalf of the client or group of clients. For example, maintain ambient temperature in the nursery at 24 degrees Celsius to prevent heat loss among newborns. So indirect intervention, hindi ka directly nag-intervene or hindi ka directly gumawa ng action para sa pasyente mo, like giving sponge bath, but you make sure na yung temperature sa room ay conducive para sa patient mo. So that's indirect intervention. And then we go with the functions of midwife. So independent, dependent, and interdependent. Independent, so you alone. So performing sponge bath, ikaw lang ang gumagawa nun, no? Ikaw lang mismo ang gumagawa nun. So that's your independent function. Your dependent function is following doctor's order. So the doctors have given you the order to give the client the sponge bath. So kung ang doktor ang nag-order sa iyo na mag-sponge bath ka or magbigay ka ng medication para bumaba ang lagnat ng iyong patient, so that is your dependent function as midwife. Kasi kumbaga nanggaling ang intervention sa doktor. So, finalo mo lang yung order niya or sinunod mo lang yung order niya. So, that is your dependent. You are, the doctor is giving orders and you are following the doctor's order. Then, interdependent. So, actions which the midwife performs in collaboration. So, collaborative ang approach natin ito. Hindi independent, hindi dependent, but collaborative. So, when it comes to collaborative approach, it is the members of the healthcare team. So, taking urine specimen and bringing it to the laboratory. So, collaborative. Kasi, sa laboratory anong meron sa laboratory? Sinong nasa laboratory? Nurse? Doctor? Sino? Anyone? How about, yes, Miss, sino pa? Si Miss Eduardo? Wala.
Mga tao po in laboratory, ma'am.
Yes, sinong member of the whole healthcare team ang nasa laboratory? Is it the nurse, the doctor, or whom?
The medtechs po.
Yes. The medtechs are also member of our healthcare team. So when we say collaboration or collaborative, so we are coordinating or cooperating with the different members of the healthcare team. So that is your interdependent function as a midwife. So tandaan nyo yun ha, independent, dependent, and interdependent. Then discharge planning. So it is a systematic process from preparing the patient to leave a healthcare agency and for the continuity of care. So discharge planning begins on admission. So concepts of discharge planning is medication, environment, treatment, and health teaching. So upon admission, may discharge plan ka na agad na ginagawa sa pasyente mo. So concepts of discharge planning, so you have the medication. So once na i-discharge na ang patient mo, merong mga take-home meds na tinatawag. So sasabihin mo yun sa patient mo, i-advise mo yung patient mo how to take the medication kapag na-discharge na sila or nakauwi na sila from hospital. And then yung environment, kung ano dapat para maging mas maayos ang paggaling, mas mabilis ang paggaling ng pasyente mo. Then treatment. So kung halimbawa ang pasyente mo ay buntis, cesarean. So she undergone cesarean section. So kapag cesarean section, 'di ba? Ano ang follow-up dapat na ginagawa every day doon? 'Di ba? Cleaning of wound or wound cleaning. 'Di ba? Wound care. So kasama 'yun sa treatment. So laging lilinisan ang sugat with betadine. Diba? Antiseptic solution, any antiseptic solution. Then health teaching. So kung ang patient mo ay postpartum, kapapanganak lang. So anong health teaching mo sa kanya? CS siya or cesarean section siya. So doon nakapaloob ang iyong health teaching. So dapat ang cesarean, ang na CS, dapat, di ba, hindi sila naka-lie flat lang in bed every day, di ba? Dapat nag-move din sila, nag-ambulate din sila, di ba? Dapat ina-exercise din nila yung kanilang mga limbs, yung kanilang mga paa, naglalakad-lakad na din, di ba? Hindi naman bawal na maglakad ang postpartum na cesarean. So, dapat pa nga ay gumagalaw-galaw sila, no? And then, you have your outpatient department check-up. So, kailan ang balik ng iyong pasyente after niyang ma-discharge? So, nakasulat din yun doon sa discharge planning nyo. And diet. Kung ang pasyente mo ay postpartum, ano kaya ang diet niya? Postpartum. So, usually, kapag ang pasyente mo ay NSD or normal ang delivery, after ng delivery, naka fluid diet lang siya. Then kapag after some time, after ilang hours, pwede na siya into full diet na, pwede na yun siya. Pero ang cesarean section, pag na-CS ang pasyente, hindi siya agad pwedeng mag-full diet. Dapat yun ay soft diet pa. Mga lugaw-lugaw, mga ganon. So, soft diet, hindi pa pwede sa kanyang mga meat. Ang mga grilled meat, hindi pa pwede. So, doon din, nakapaloob yung diet. So, ang spiritual, so as preferred to ng patient mo, hindi mo pwedeng pakialaman or pangunahan siya doon sa kung ano ang spiritual preference niya, no? So, yun ang discharge planning. And then, reasons for discharging patient. Bakit natin dinidischarge ang pasyente natin? Kasi syempre kapag magaling na ang patient mo, no? The patient has returned to normal health and will be returning home. The patient will be transferred to another facility or itatransfer ang patient mo sa ibang hospital. So you have to make the discharge. You have to discharge the patient. Hindi mo pwedeng i-detain ang pasyente kung gusto niyang lumipat ng ospital. It's their right, di ba? Then, patient wanted to leave the hospital for some reason. Naghama ang pasyente, home against medication. Ayaw niya nang mag-continue ng treatment. Karapatan niya yon to refuse the treatment. Provided, ano yung sinabi ko last time? Diba? Lagi nating ipoprovide ang waiver or ang consent ng patient natin, no? Para hindi tayo masu, hindi magkaroon ng legal implications yung ginawa sa patient natin. So, as he wish, as she wish, pwede natin siyang i-discharge once ayaw niya nang i-continue yung treatment sa kanya. Karapatan niya yung mag-refuse. And if the patient has died, so syempre hindi mo pwedeng i-detain sa morgue ang pasyente mo. Kailangan mo yung i-discharge. Then, reminders before discharging a patient. So, reminders. So, reminders before discharging a patient. The patient has a discharge. So, the patient has a discharge order. So, dapat laging may discharge order ng doktor. Hindi mo pwedeng pauwi ng patient kasi gusto mo lang siyang pauwiin. Lagi tayo magre-rely sa discharge order ng doktor. Number 2, the patient and relatives understand discharge instructions, diet, return clinic visit, medication, treatment that will be required him after leaving the hospital. So, reminders, lagi nating ipapaalala sa mga pasyente or sa relative ng pasyente yung mga nakalagay doon sa or isinulat natin sa discharge planning natin. Katulad nung yung instruction ng diet ng pasyente, yung kung kailan ang return visit niya, kung kailan ang check-up niya ulit, kung paano iinumin ang medication niya. So, kailangan mo lahat yang sabihin or ibigay yung information yan sa patient natin bago sila i-discharge. Then, observe hospital policies when discharging patient. So, lagi tayong naka-abide sa rules and policies of the hospital. Then, assist patient to dress and pack all his belongings. See to it that he has all his belongings. So, yung mga gamit ng pasyente, dapat sinisecure din natin na nadala nila lahat. Kasi baka mamaya ay may gamit na mawala, hindi naman natin yun liabilities, no? Kaya dapat inform sila na dalhin nila lahat ng gamit nila, wala silang iiwanan. Then assist patient and transport patient to a car and assist him to a car as necessary. So if ang patient hindi niya kayang maglakad, so dadalhin mo siya or ilagay mo siya sa wheelchair and then i-assist mo siya pa labas ng hospital hanggang sa makarating sa sasakyan nila or kung ano man ang mode of transportation niya. Then record the discharge on patient's chart, condition of patient, date and time of discharge, and ang accompanying relatives. So, lagi nating i-record, di ba? Baka may umalis na si patient mo, nakalimutan mo i-record kung kailan siya. Kasi tinatanong din yun. Lagi yung tinatanong ng doktor, anong oras umalis si patient, anong araw. So, tinatanong din yan. At kailangan natin din yung i-document, no? Para alam natin for billing purposes as well and some other purposes. Then, documentation. Ang laging importante, it is an important part of intervention or implementing phase of healthcare process to ensure accountability and continuity of care. Then, evaluation. So, the last one is evaluation. So it is assessing the patient's response to interventions and then comparing the responses to goals or outcomes criteria written in the planning phase. So determining the extent of the goals. The midwife determines if the outcome criteria is completely met, partially met, or not met at all. So, sa inyong healthcare process, sa healthcare plan nyo, nandyan yun, yung goal nyo. Kung makikita nyo doon sa binigay na sample sa inyo, yung last na cell, yung last na column, nakalagay doon, di ba, yung goal, tapos met, completely met, partially met, or not met at all, or unmet. So, gaano ka ka-functional as midwife? So, dyan yun madidetermine. Gaano ka-effective ang intervention mo? Gaano ka-effective yung goal mo sa pasyente mo? So, if it's completely met, so well and good. You successfully intervene and given the right care and render the right care to your patient. If it's partially met, siguro medyo nagkaroon lang ng konting problema or something. But if it's unmet, that is basically baka may naging problema ka sa ginawa mong goal, sa ginawa mong objective, kaya hindi mo siya na meet. Hindi mo siya na pagtagumpayan. So, below, may mga activities kayo dyan na dapat gawin. Nagawa nyo ba? Nagawa nyo na ba yung mga activities or not yet? So, we go with the healthcare plan. So, after nung healthcare plan natin, you have the, ng healthcare process, you have the healthcare plan. So, it is a guide of the healthcare workers in rendering care for the patient. So, parts of healthcare plan, yung diniscuss ko, APAI, it's assessment, planning, intervention, rationale, and evaluation. So, yan yung nakapaloob sa healthcare plan nyo. So, assessment, so yung subjective and objective data and measurements natin, vital signs, TPR, planning, kung ano yung gusto mong, kung ano yung goal mo sa patient mo. And then intervention, so is it independent, dependent, interdependent, depende sa goal na yung intervention mo. Depende sa patient. Then, evaluation. Last one. Met, partially met, or unmet. So, that consists your healthcare plan. So, any questions, clarifications regarding your healthcare process? Anyone? Wala. So, i-discuss ko na lang yung inyong gagawing yung sa assessment nyo, no? So, you have here your assessment, yung healthcare plan. So, kailangan nyo gumawa ng case analysis. So, formulate a healthcare plan based from your submitted short video interview. So, visit our Google Classroom and download the HCP template. The soft copy of your HCP must be submitted on or before the specified time of the instructor to our Google Classroom. So, the submission will be on October 15, right? On or before October 15. So, kung sino yung inyong in-interview or inyong client or inyong patient doon sa inyong MCI, so yun yung gagawa nyo ng healthcare plan. So, as kung ano yung na-identify nyong problem, yun yung ilalagay nyo sa healthcare plan. Yun yung gagawa nyo ng healthcare plan. So, understood? Any clarifications? Wala na. Pa-open ako ng cam. Pa-open ng cam. So, ilan kayo? So, 9 lang kayo, no? Kasi, 10 lang lahat ng naka-join. So, including me. So, 9 lang yung luckily na naka-join. Pa-open ako lahat ng cam. For documentation, kailangan natin ng documentation. Please open your cam. Si Miss, sino pa ang hindi naka-open ng cam? Novino. Vien. Ma'am mo si Ma'am, si Teacher M. Ma'am, si
Opo.
Teacher M. Okay. Kasi sabi ko parang familiar ka. Say hi to her.
Sige po.
Sabi mo si Dina sa Montessori before.
Sige po.
Then, what else? Okay, so yun lang naman. Meron ba sa inyo ang nag-shift na yung bagong shift from from modular to flexi? I guess Miss Pablo, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Pablo, yeah. So, yung mga late na naka-join dito sa ating Google Classroom kasi nga nagkaroon ng mga changes. So, you can still submit yung mga output, no? So, I'll be waiting for all of your output until before midterm. Before midterm exam. So, dapat lahat ng output nyo ma-send din na sa akin. Para wala kayong ma-miss. Basta lahat ng na-miss nyo, pwede nyo i-send sa akin, no?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you po.
Thank you po.
So, I guess that would be all. Kung merong mga questions, clarifications, pwede nyo na lang i-send sa GC natin. No? So, goodbye for now and good afternoon.
Thank you.
Afternoon po. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
ma'am.